Hello everyone and welcome back to Dragalia Foundry, a fan channel where everything Dragalia Lost can be found. Happy New Year everybody, we made it to 2022. I hope your new year is off to a great start, and I want to start off this video just on a note of gratitude to say thank you for being a part of this channel last year, for watching my videos, for playing Dragalia Lost. The game and the channel, the community, was a real highlight for me last year in what was otherwise a pretty difficult year. And so I'm hoping it's brighter days ahead for all of us as we head into 2022. And of course, I hope that Dragalia continues to be that same source of comfort, source of fun and community for all of us. I think we're going to have a bright year ahead. At least that's what I'm hoping. And as of now, in Dragalia Lost, it looks like that's going to be the case. So just want to wish you all well. I thought I'd also show my lucky letters and one of my free daily tenfolds to start off the video. As you can see, I did end up getting a water dragon on Gala Ciela's showcase, but not the water dragon I was hoping for. So more summonings to come on that. Hopefully we will end up getting her in the end and hopefully even clearing that banner. But that's for another video. For today, we're going to be focused on this month in Dragalia Lost. If you're newer to the game, this is where the game's director, Okada, talks to us about things to come for the month ahead and often teases things about the game's future as a whole. So in this video, I'm going to read through that news post. I'll share my thoughts and impressions on everything, my opinions, what I'm most excited about, and hopefully I can hear from y'all in the comments about what you're most excited about as well. I really think that we are in a renaissance period for Dragalia Lost. This feels like another golden age, potentially, for Dragalia Lost with the content that we've had lately, between Primal Midgardsormr, the Kaleidoscape, and all of these New Year's freebies, the double drops, the raid event itself, the super cool characters that have just released, and what's planned in January. It feels like a really good time to be playing the game, and it's something I was not expecting. 3 years ago when this game started, I didn't know what the longevity would be like, let alone had no idea there would be very substantial new modes being released in this game 3 years plus later. So I'm really happy with where the game is. I think it's the best time that there has ever been. I mean, this is always the case, like it's just constantly improving, but I think it's the best time it's ever been to really jump into things if you're newer to Dragalia Lost. So if that's you, welcome aboard. Hope you have a fun time. Let's go ahead and get into this month in Dragalia Lost though, and check out what's coming up. So as always, Director Okada starts off by thanking us for playing Dragalia Lost, and there's also a nice little New Year's message here. First month of 2022, and on behalf of the entire team, Director Okada wants to wish everybody a very happy new year and hope that you continue to enjoy your adventures in Dragalia Lost this year as well. To help you start off 2022 right, we're bringing in the new year with a whole host of events, including the traditional daily free tenfold summon. Make sure you're logging in every day to take advantage of that. Be sure to check out the notices section for more information on what's happening and when. There's a lot to keep track of, and you don't want to miss any of it. That's certainly true. Okay, so we start off here with last month in review. The game received 2 major content updates last month. First of all, enter the Kaleidoscape, and second, challenge Primal Midgardsormr. So let's start reading about Enter the Kaleidoscape. Okada says, "How are you enjoying the Kaleidoscape? Exploring, fighting, and surviving all the way to floor 50 with a single adventure may seem like a tall order, but I'm sure that as you get more and more used to how this new mode and its mechanics work, you'll be able to successfully navigate the perils of the labyrinth within with all of your favorite adventurers. For those of you who manage to master its intricacies in the coming days, fear not. We plan to perform gameplay adjustments and add even more floors as time goes on. We'd love to hear what you think of the Kaleidoscape thus far, so please give it a go and consider sending us your impressions and suggestions via the leave feedback feature in-game." I love the direct call out for feedback. That's fantastic to see that there's a willingness to listen to what the community has to say about the mode. I've seen a lot of positive responses and some more constructive responses, some things that players aren't as excited about by the mode or are having a harder time with, but just the fact that there's more levels being planned, maybe different types of floors that we've yet to encounter, I am super hyped because personally, despite some shortcomings or some issues. Like, I've really loved this mode overall. It's reinvigorated my spark to play Dragalia Lost on a daily basis, and the fact that you can do this with any adventure in your collection, it feels really fresh every time I've played it. So I've done 12 successful clears so far of floor 50, and every clear I've done, or every run I've done, has been a success. So those are also my only 12 attempts so far. And I've played with every weapon type at this point, have started to get some of my Fafnir upgrades, but don't have all of them yet. Or I guess they're just like Kaleidoscape upgrades that you get on the main menu. I cleared out the treasure trade last month. So personally, I've really been digging it, and I would love to see, a little bit more variety, maybe with like the shared skills, maybe changing out what of those are available, maybe adding some different dragons in. I think the more different dragons, shared skills, types of floors, the greater the longevity of this mode. Like for me personally, I've been starting at floor 30 every time outside of my very first clear with Eleonora, and in those floors, I do start to see some of the same floors happening repeatedly. It still feels pretty fun to take those on with different adventurers who have different strengths and weaknesses, but I think, bringing in some of those bosses that are only available in the earlier floors, as well as other bosses that just aren't in the mode yet, that maybe are in like Trials of the Mighty, changing things up in ways like that could make it very, very fun. At the same time, there's a level of consistency to it that I feel like is necessary to make it feel like a fair challenge. So for example, on floor 45, you fight a human form Agito boss, and that is always a preview of the final boss you'll face in the labyrinth on floor 50. And so that gives you some time, some floors to prepare your proper shared skill loadout that you're going to want to take on that final boss. Certain adventures have certainly been much better than others, and frankly, it's a lot of the adventures that we tend to see already be very successful in other game modes, like the Primal Dragon Trials or the Sinister Dominion. So Ayahan de Toha is a really exceptional adventure for this. I also think Basilius is excellent. Gala Leonidas and other rapid-fire manacasters are quite good. Not and Tiki, because they get unlimited uses of their transformations, are very strong as well. So there are good options out there, but then there are some adventures that don't normally see as much shine. Let's say adventures that have Slayer strength, like a Naveed or Julieta, that get to actually utilize that in a way that they normally don't get to utilize. And what I like is the shared skills are diverse enough that they can cover your weaknesses pretty well. So when I went through and did my Pietro clear, for example, I started at level 30, but I had enough time to try collect some weapons that had a high hit count, so that one point when I ran into a floor full of enemies that only took 1 damage per hit, I had a Catherine skill, or a couple of them, that I could use and make my life a lot easier. And once you know what your boss is going to be after floor 45, you can also plan accordingly. So if I saw Kayan, okay, start stacking up some dispels. If I saw the twins, maybe I wanted like 1 freeze shared skill just in case things went haywire, otherwise wanted some heals, some damage dealing, maybe a few dispels, kind of a mix. And there are already strategies that have developed around this, like taking max HP shared skills tends to be a pretty valuable shared skill to bring into the gauntlet. So that's going to mean either Nurse Eileen's or Cassandra's or Sinoa's, but hers is random chance. And when you use those, you get a permanent buff the rest of the quest, unless you have to reset because you die. So there's lots of little things to like about the mode, the music changing every time. For me, one thing that's also really helped, I still feel like the mode is a little bit on the longer side, but starting at floor 30, I have not had any issues with clearing yet. I think you could get unlucky with like an all healer room with a low DPS character or something, but I haven't had any major issues yet starting at floor 30, playing some weaker characters and some stronger characters. But I think that like one thing that's helped me with the overall experience is I've started to kind of like group up all the enemies on a floor before fighting them. So not all enemies will follow you across the map. Like some of them, like the tree enemies or some of the flying enemies, are limited to a certain area. But many enemies, like the common Imperial soldiers, they will follow you across the map. And so for characters who already have good AoE properties, or most characters, their skills will hit nearby enemies anyway. For those types of characters, you could start lots of levels by just like getting everybody to follow you into one room near the end, including the menaces, which are the mini bosses that have a red or purple aura, and then start using your skills and start attacking. It's a higher risk strategy because you've drawn more aggro, but at the same time it makes the floors go a lot faster because every skill you're using, you're going to get collateral damage on the menace, on all the other enemies. If you group up enemies like trolls, defenders, or axemen who require hit count to defeat, this is also effective at dealing with them because then your one Catherine shared skill, let's say, or one Lara Noah shared skill can hit all of them at once. So just like the angles of attack can matter. If you have a character who hits in a line, right, lining up all your enemies. I had a student Maribel shared skill at one point where if I lined up all my enemies just right, that was actually pretty good with the hit count and the amount of damage potential. So all these little subtleties to the mode feel very fun, and I will say if you are struggling with it, there are some challenging floors, like you could get on the all-healer floor without a good dragon to give you the damage burst, or without a strong character with enough DPS to kind of take down some of the healers. But one of the things that can be most effective if you're struggling is honestly just to like roll around until your shared skills are ready. As you get more confident in the mode, you can be a little bit more aggressive, like roll and force strike or roll and use standard attacks. But the mode definitely rewards you for learning the different nuances and attack patterns of these different enemies. Especially with the menaces, for example, like you can avoid taking any damage from them if you're really careful with your play. Different types of enemies have different behavior as well. I noticed with like the lizard men, they tend to not get stun locked or suction locked by certain moves. Whereas other enemies, if you just like force strike them repeatedly, they just get stun locked and can't do anything. So there's so much nuance I found with this. I'm probably going to keep playing it and try to get a clear with every adventure at one point. I know I've gushed a lot about Enter the Kaleidoscape, but I still want to hear your thoughts on it. I'm curious if y'all want to see more videos about it. The only thing is they're just a little bit on the longer side, so it's still taking me like probably at least a good hour, even starting from level 30 on all of my runs. Maybe some of that is due to more cautious play, but it still feels pretty lengthy. It might also be like the floor variety, like I'm getting a lot of the longer maps, but yeah, overall, nothing but praise from me for the Kaleidoscape. I do think some of the criticism is valid, like it can be hard, you can feel like you get stuck, but as I've played it more and more, I do feel like there are really good built-in ways of mitigating a lot of those problems. I'm going to try with some harder characters going forward, so I think Mine is next up on my list of characters to take this on with, and I've heard she's kind of difficult, but so far so good for me with the Kaleidoscape. 12 clears down. We'll see how high we're able to get that up by the end of the month. But yeah, this has been a super fun mode for me, so I hope you're liking it too. Let's move on to Challenge Primal Midgardsormr. There's a new series of high difficulty quests in town. In Primal Midgardsormr's trial, you'll have to stay on your toes as humanoid Midgardsormr shapeshifts into Primal Midgardsormr partway through the fight. The struggle to subdue the primordial great worms will be worth it though, as you can use the materials dropped from each of these bosses to craft powerful 6-star primal dragon weapons that match their elemental attunement. We plan to add quests for the remaining 4 great worms in the future, so prepare your roster for the trials ahead. Okay, so this is another case where I pretty much just have praise to share. I really like Primal Midgardsormr's trial. I think that it's a nice evolution of the great worms, the high dragons that we fought as our initial endgame bosses, and yet it takes elements from the Sinister Dominion and from the Agito that I think were some of the better elements of those fights. So for example, something it borrows from the Agito is the transformation aspect, that there's a phase 1 and phase 2 to the boss fight. I think that just adds a sense of grandeur, a sense of scale to the battle that feels very satisfying. It's also just cool to see Midgardsormr in his human form and then become this awesome dragon that's larger than life. Something it takes from the Sinister Dominion is the Curse of Nihility, which I know is not a beloved mechanic, but I actually kind of feel like now we have enough tools as the year has gone on that Curse of Nihility is no longer as punishing or painful as it used to be when there are just a few characters specialized to build to be built around it, kind of. The other thing is, without Creeping Corrosion, I feel like just having Curse of Nihility, it just feels much more manageable to me than when I had Creeping Corrosion, had to run healers. Like, there was a merit to that because healers weren't getting a lot of use otherwise. But as Creeping Corrosion appeared in every Sinister Dominion boss fight and not just Lilith, it started to wear on me a little bit. I also feel like everything is sort of like well explained. Something that's kind of tough with the legend difficulties is there'll be these mechanics like Ciella's 3 phases of matter attack that until you trial and error it quite a few times, like you may have no idea what's going on. So far in Primal Midgardsormr, my experience has been, even though that it's a challenging fight, it feels like a fair fight as well. It doesn't feel like there's any like gimmick or cheap mechanic. Maybe the summons veer into that territory a little bit, but I just like the summons as kind of a cool touch that you're fighting different kinds of wind adventures. It does create a lot of chaos on the screen, but it also, this fight kind of rewards you. This is similar to the original High Dragons, but it rewards you the faster you're able to clear because mechanics happen at certain times in the battle. So if you go on longer, then you have to fight some of the harder components and you might be more likely to fail. If you're able to clear more quickly, then you're going to get through the fight before you fight some of those. So it rewards you, incentivizes you for getting better, for improving your times. And the weapons have been very good. They've also made it easier to take on Legend Yaldabaoth, which previously was a really hard fight in that first win phase. So once again, from me on this one, I've just gotta sing the praises here. Like, I've been really happy with Dragalia Lost lately, and this is one of the reasons for it. So let's continue on and talk about the Celestial Showdown raid event. So here it says, a new raid event, Celestial Showdown, is now available. You can recruit the adventurer Izumo to your roster if you complete enough quests and forge a lasting friendship with him. Don't forget to collect the adventurer upgrade items either. So those are called convictions, and you want to collect those during the event because if you use those to upgrade Izumo during the event or reward period, then you don't have to spend other resources to upgrade him. It's all self-contained within the event and you can get him fully powered up. If you wait later, then you're going to have to spend extra resources. Izumo is also a pretty good adventurer with access to bleed, poison, and stormlash, and some survival abilities like a HP co ability, a defense ability. Pretty solid. We've gotten good free wind welfare characters now between Humanoid Midgardsormr, Harl, and Izumo. Doesn't seem like a busted character by any means, but if you're lacking affliction enablers, the fact that there's poison and stormlash, when Iblis releases, this is going to be a good welfare option, I think, for players, because Legend Iblis and even Master Iblis, you have to apply afflictions often as a central part of that battle. So I like Izumo so far. From a story standpoint, there's a lot going on, which I'll get into in a later video focused on Celestial Showdown, but this was an enjoyable raid event for me. As is tradition for New Year's events, the story revolves around the affairs of the distant land of Hinamoto, and you'll have to face the fearsome Tsukuyomi in a heated battle. It's finally time for the 12 Worm Clan leaders to band together and show us what they're made of. Speaking of Worm Clan leaders, the adventurers Shingen and Yukimura and the dragon Fudomyo-o, all of whom appear in this event, are featured in a Gala Dragalia right now. So the fact that Tsukuyomi is here is just also mind-boggling. So her image at least, was found in game assets near the beginning of Dragalia Lost, like back in 2018. which it's 2022 now, and she's finally appeared in the game. It's wild to me that she's finally in the game, having first appeared that long ago, just like Kaleidoscape. The name of it first appeared that long ago, and it's taken this long to develop. But I'm super happy she's present here. I kind of hope she'll be summonable. Her portrait makes me think that maybe she will be. But even if she's just a raid boss, she's been a good raid boss. It's a little hard to assess until we get the Omega difficulties, because Expert and EX right now are on the easier side if you've been playing for a while to take on. But I love her intro sequence, her animation when the battle starts. I think that's super cool. And I like the role that she played in the story of the event, so glad to see her here too. And then Shingen and Yukimura, I mean, what can I say about these characters? Fantastic relationship between the two, great characterization, obviously very different personalities, but the event presented them in a super fun way and playful way. And even Fudomio O too had her role to play in the event, and is a good dragon to summon now. So I think it's a good banner. We have free summons on it. Very pleased with it, and pleased with the event itself. It feels like we're finally getting into the end game of the Hinomoto and storyline, so I like that as well. Okay, so plans for this month. We finally arrived here. First up, Water and Shadow attuned versions of Iblis will appear as raid bosses in Trials of the Mighty this month. Clear these quests to earn rewards like materials for unlocking the mana spirals of Catherine or Sazanka from the daily bonus. For further information, please see the corresponding notifications once they are posted. So I have to say, this came as a surprise to me. Not Catherine as much as Sazanka. A 4-star getting a mana spiral that's not a healer, it just has not happened probably in over a year. I mean, maybe. Has it been that long? Mana spirals these days are doled out through the Trials of the Mighty system, but we've seen ways in which that's slowly been improved. So first, we started getting special conviction and devotion items, which are used for those mana spirals, in the treasure trade for Legend Sinister Dominion materials. There were just a handful, so it wasn't like a huge impact, but it was enough that you could sometimes get like that one extra unbind that you needed for your character, and I appreciated that as a small step. Now with Kaleidoscape, we get 2 Omnisite every month from the treasure trade, which means 2 Trials of the Mighty spirals that you can immediately do without having to grind out the mode. I think that is now a very good balance for this, especially as these mana spirals expand further. Like, we're getting 2 new ones a month, so players who haven't been caught up with that are going to need some time to catch up and opportunities, and I think the Kaleidoscape mode will give that. We're also getting an Omnisite as part of our New Year's bonus. As far as what the mana spirals for these characters will look like and what this Iblis battle will look like, I'm not so sure on Iblis. Like, the way they implement the way they implemented him in the Satan raid event, maybe he'll take some of those cues here too, but that's kind of over in a blur, like the summons that Satan did. So it'll probably be more like his regular boss fight, hopefully a little bit less reliant on like the affliction gatekeeping stuff. But frankly, in a raid setting, like that should be a lot easier. If there's like bat spawns where you have to track bats, I'm just imagining how many of those would appear to fill a raid arena. There would probably be a lot of them. But I'm curious. I hope it's a little different than his normal fight, but Iblis is a character that I just want to see more and more of. Like, if they make playable Sinister Dominion, this is the one I want to be playable first. And as for Catherine and Sazanka, so a couple things that have been continuous or like have been normal with these mana spirals. Sometimes they'll throw in Dispel. Sometimes they'll throw in strength amps or defense amps. Sometimes they'll throw in more recent affliction. So like they might throw Shadow Blight onto Sazanka. They might throw Dispel onto Sazanka's special 4 strikes or something, or just her first skill even. Maybe her 4 strikes will do Shadow Blight damage or cause Shadow Blight. Those are kind of like the core upgrades that we've seen for most characters, and then maybe a damage improvement overall. I don't expect anything like too game changing, but just well, actually, maybe a better way of putting it is just those little things substantially improve the viability of some of these characters to where they're a good alternative to rarer Gala adventurers in some cases. Like, maybe not on the level, but a solid character to put on your team. And so that's what I'm expecting for both of them. I don't think they're necessarily going to become like the new meta characters that are must-have, but some of the mana spirals have been really good. Gala Leafs a while back was an example where he just got loaded up with lots of stuff, like probably beyond what he really needed to be super viable. So yeah, I think this is going to be one to look forward to. Not much to say without seeing their kits, of course. And then the Fortune's Fray Coliseum event is returning on 1/13. So this was probably my favorite of any of our Onslaught, Defensive, or Coliseum events. I think this is our only Coliseum event that we've ever had. And if you're not familiar with these Coliseum events, essentially you're fighting other adventurers, not other players, they're CPU controlled, but you're fighting adventurers wave after wave, and it's kind of like the first wave spawns in, it might be like Luther and Orsum. You defeat them if you're in the water challenge or gauntlet. Then on the next floor, some other water characters spawn in, and maybe it's like Pipple, Valerio, and Mitsuba or something. So they're also themed around the characters that appear in groups together. And then at the end, you fight a dragon and adventurers as the boss for that particular challenge. I think that's what this is like, if I'm remembering the Coliseum mode correctly. It's been a while. But one thing I like about this that may be promising, Coliseum floors would be kind of sweet in the Kaleidoscape. But besides that, just the fact that this is going to be available, I know in the event compendium we have Fire Emblem Kindred Ties, which is the other place that you can play the Coliseum mode, but this is one of the better events to come back. Like, I'm glad this is back. We haven't had real reruns, or I don't think we're gonna get new events in the defensive and onslaught category, maybe not in the Coliseum category either, but we have had like reruns. So we had Dragon Yule Offensive come back, which was fine, and I think we're going to start to see more of these come into the compendium, and this is one of the ones I'd rather see this month. So I think this is going to be quite enjoyable if you've never played this before. Okay, so next up, part 2 of chapter 23 of the main campaign will be added on January 18th. The mysterious being known as the Progenitor will finally be revealed to the prince and friends, but they will not find a warm welcome. In this time of great danger, an unexpected savior swoops in to save the day. I think y'all already know who that is. He is featured in the Elementary Escapades event prominently. He's also featured in the, Cage Desire event, the Persona crossover event as well. I think it's got to be Emil. He's the leader of the Diurnal Empire now, Emperor Emil. Hopefully swooping in with a Gala variant to save the day. That's who I'm expecting. Maybe it'll be somebody else. But learning more about the Progenitor, I think, is welcome. But for me, the main campaign has started to get a little bit hard to track with all of the sort of like world-shaping lore elements that have taken place there. I'm glad there's supplemental material, like Kaleidoscape is one source of this, because I feel like I almost need that to really understand what's happening. That being said, the last chapter half was pretty good, and we got some good boss battles in the story recently too. So I'm hopeful for this one. I think it'll be a fun one, and not much more to say on it. Okay, then the Princess Connect Redive, a Voracious Visitor raid event, will return on 1/21. You can recruit Adventurer Forager Cleo to your roster if you complete enough event quests to forge a lasting friendship with her. Great rerun. It's a kind of a semi-collab in the sense that it's another Cygames property, and so we saw this with our Rage of Bahamut event, where it's kind of not quite as hyped up or not quite on the level of like an outside franchise, like with Mega Man, Monster Hunter, or Persona, or Fire Emblem. Well, Fire Emblem being a somewhat unique case because of the Nintendo relationship, but that was still like a big deal, hyped up event. These I feel like are on the smaller side. Like it's a a reskinned boss. But at the same time, these are iconic characters to some. There's an anime, there's another game which is now localized as well, Princess Connect Redive. So I think this is another really good choice of Rerun alongside Fortune's Fray, so that players who are starting Dragalia in December or January, like, you're going to get a wealth of experiences. You're going to have a really fun raid event, you're going to have a really fun Coliseum event, and I think that that's why I'm excited about January. Like, the overall package looks really solid. As far as Princess Connect, like, maybe we could get Kokoro and, gosh, I know in the dub, I think it's like Carol, but maybe it's like Kyaru or something. The cat girl. I don't know that much about Princess Connect, but like those two on a banner would be gangbusters, I feel. Yeah, so we have Pecorine already. We have Forager Mitsuba. Just did a Kaleido run with her yesterday and made it through. So hopefully we get some more Princess Connect characters to go alongside them. Although maybe they're setting us up for the future, maybe a second Princess Connect event down the road, and they want to rerun this one first. Either way, this was an enjoyable one. Good stickers, good treasure trade, I believe, on this one too. Unlike a normal raid event, I feel like there's more stuff in this, so good rewards. I'm happy to see it come back. And now, Legend difficulty for Asura's Blinding Light in Rise of the Sinister Dominion will be added at the end of the month. Solid. Our next set of endgame content for the more hardcore players, that's going to present a nice new challenge. It's Legend, which goes beyond what we've had with the Primal Great Worms. In Asura's battle, you don't use wind characters at all, so we won't be able to necessarily utilize the new primal weapons from Midgardsormr's trial, although you could equip them off element, I suppose. But that should mean that this is like a pretty good challenge. The Kaleidoscape worm prints, which I haven't talked about too much in this video or any other video, do represent a very significant power increase. So I'll be curious to see how this is balanced. Is this balanced around our previous setup of worm prints, or does it take into account the fact that we can now have like some really strong prints from the Kaleidoscape, basically taking the place of like 1 to 2 of our other print slots if you roll good prints. As far as my thoughts on those, since I didn't share it earlier, I'm totally fine with like the randomness aspect of it. The reason for that is I'm seeing them as like extra for most content right now. If we actually have to min-max them, that would not be the best case scenario to me. Like, I like the fact that they feel good to get, but you don't need them per se. So if it gets to a point where it's like, if you don't have these, you're going to time out, that would be kind of unfortunate. But so far I've enjoyed getting them randomly, and I'm not like trying to farm them. I'm just planning on clearing with every character in the Kaleidoscape instead of farming one particular character. Okay, so next up, the dragons Prometheus, Simurgh, Freya, Tieshan Gongzhu, and Azazel may be unbound up to 5 times starting later this month. Excited to see that, in particular for Freya and Azazel, already quite strong, and Prometheus, interesting maybe for applications in auto battle of Primal Midgardsormr. Simurgh and Tieshan Gongzhu. I guess Tieshan is in the same category as Freya and Azazel, I just don't happen to have her myself. And then Simurgh really hasn't seen a whole lot of use, so she's probably the dragon here that could use the biggest upgrade among these. And now we finally come to future updates. Certain Onslaught and defensive events will be added to the event compendium in an update in late January. We'll continue to add Onslaught defensive and Coliseum events to the event compendium as time goes on. Solid, happy to see that. Those events, I feel like that's the perfect place to kind of relegate them, rather than rerunning a lot of them unless they're like a really good one. I'd be happier with them just kind of being in the compendium as content you can tackle whenever. An event featuring the royal family of Alberia will be held in late January. Some of the prince's older siblings who have shied away from the spotlight in events thus far may finally have their chance to shine. Yo, okay, so this could be a Valix-themed event. Varys, Baron, Leonidas, Chell. There are a lot of characters who could be featured prominently in this. Now, if I had to guess, we've gotten a lot of Leonidas and Chell So I think that this is either going to be centered around Valix or Ferris. I could honestly see Ferris and maybe set it a little bit in the past, like before he got possessed by the progenitor. Sorry for spoilers, but I just kind of said that. Before certain things happened. And his relationship with Leonidas, because they're supposed to be kind of rivals, being like the first and second heir. And he also is kind of this mad scientist. At least that's the archetype I'd put him in, Ferris. So I'd like to see a little bit more about him. But Valix as well. Valix is just like, he's deserving of an event. He was like our first big boss in Dragalia Lost, because when it released, only Chapter 6 was available up through Chapter 6, and he was the boss at the end of that. Valix has been through the ringer, the Agito arc with Valix and Zethia. You know, not to get into too many details, but that was a whole thing. Thor becoming available, like the fact that we haven't had Gala Valix so far makes me really want an event for him specifically. So I could see it being one of those two. I don't really think it's going to be Baron. It just doesn't seem likely unless it's Ferris focused and Baron kind of plays somewhat of a role in it. But yeah, that's one that I think, again, like all these events in January are home run type of events that are happening. The New Year's raid. Then we're going to have the Princess Connect rerun, the Coliseum event, a royal family themed event. They're ones that you could really latch on to quite easily that aren't focused as much on more of the auxiliary characters. Okay, so besides that, for those hungry for more high difficulty content, Legend difficulty for Iblis's Surging Cascade and Rise of the Sinister Dominion will be added in late February, and Primal Brunhilde's Trial will be added in late March. I love that too. Personally, I love that cadence of like one really hard quest a month. I know some players want more than that. That feels just right to me. Gives me a month to play it, try it, farm it in some cases before the next content comes out. So it doesn't feel as rushed as when you have back-to-back really hard trials. I'm glad to see this. I felt like Primal Midgardsormr and Legend Yaldabaoth were a little close to me, to where like I wouldn't have minded a little bit more time. But thinking back, like that was probably plenty of time. It was just that the holidays were kind of busy. So I think the fact that we're getting one of these a month, like, cool. This month I'll focus on Asura. Next month I'll focus on Iblis. Then I'll focus on Primal Brunhilde. And probably after that, we'll get Surtur and then eventually the other Primal Dragons. And then they'll start to intersperse the Legend difficulty of the Primal Dragons too. And finally, we come to, in conclusion, thank you for reading this month's update. We're giving all players the following gift this month: 100 million rupees and 3 summon vouchers. The next installment is planned for February 1st, 2022. Until then, thanks for reading and for continuing to play Dragalia Lost. That is going to do it for today's video, everyone. Let me know what you're most excited about in this month in Dragalia Lost in the comments below. Otherwise, thank you as always for watching. Have a wonderful start to your new year. Take care, and I'll see you next time.